Hello, physio practice owners. If you want to know how to rank number one for terms like physio near me and how to appear number one in that Google Map 3-pack, then this is the episode for you. Hello and welcome to today's episode. It's called How to Do SEO that builds long-term patience for your practice. Now, there are lots of channels for getting new patients, but as of this moment, right, SEO is still the gold standard when it comes to getting new patients. Why? Because SEO tends to be the most trusted source of, marketing and advertising for your physio clinic, right? And SEO really appears in two places. The first is the actual Google Map pack. Right? For example, if you type in physio near me, that map pack that appears in the top of the search results, that's place number one. Place number two is underneath that, the results page, what we call the search engine results page, or SERPs. Right? That's place number two. And each of these two things you need to optimize them separately. They're sort of related together, but they still need to be optimized separately to make sure that you rank number one for each of those sections. So what we're going to be doing in this session, in this podcast, is to figure out and give you the framework exactly how to rank number one for terms like physio near me, right? And other big keywords that are relevant to your practice in both the Google Map pack and the search results page. All right. It's applicable for every one of those practices. So before we go on, I just want to have a quick chat about why SEO really matters for your physio clinic. Now, I already mentioned it is the most trusted form of advertising there is because it's more organic, right? But let's talk about why SEO matters for physio clinics, right? So this is why. We are finding that the amount of people searching for physio and physio-related terms in Google is always rising. Right? Because what we find is physiotherapy is becoming more and more of a service that people are searching for actively online. So the trend for it is going more and more up. All right. For that very reason, you need to be on Google and ranking well on Google. Okay. So obviously, the higher you rank, the more new patients you get. Remember, this is the most trusted source of online traffic you can get, SEO, right, from Google. So if you rank high, obviously means more new patients without paid ads. It's a big, big advantage. Okay, and the number one reason is SEO really builds trust. It is, like I say, it's the one channel that has the biggest amount of trust because it's not something that you paid for necessarily on Google, right? This is what Google's recommending based on how it was optimized, right? So this is a recommendation by Google, right? In these listings, there's no sponsored tag on them. So because of that, people who are searching for these terms know it's not being paid for. Because of that, there's a lot more trust, the most amount of trust, all right? But here's the big problem when it comes to most SEO strategies for physio practices. Right. So what I hear from lots of practice owners who are not doing this correctly, even the big practices, or even with businesses with multiple practices, they just write blogs. Right. It's not enough just to write a blog. So it's not enough just to get, your physios to write blogs without a real plan of attack. Right. Because there are certain things that you need to have in those blogs for it to be SEO relevant and have high SEO signals to actually give the results you're looking for, right? Which ultimately is get more phone calls and get more new patients booked into your diary, right? So everything needs to be attached to that objective. So just writing blogs isn't going to be enough. It needs to be a real plan how to do that. And I'll cover that in this session as well. Okay. Another big problem is that physio practitioners tend to think is that they think SEO is one-time work. It's not. It's ongoing. The reason being, right, you might have heard of Google algorithms, right? Now, these are updates by Google that are enforced onto websites and businesses all around the world, depending on how, I guess, marketing landscape or anything changes, right? Whenever you have one of these Google algorithm updates, you might need to change how your website is presented to Google to match that algorithm update. Not only that, there are lots of others as well. So for example, let's just say your website is hosted on WordPress or Wix or Squarespace or whatever it is. You might have updates within those platforms. And with those updates, some are great, some are not so great. And there are certain things that you need to do to make sure that your website is appearing the right way and the way that the visitors really want to be seen for you to be doing well in SEO. So because of that, it's not just, you do it once and you leave it. No, it's actually an ongoing changing environment. It's always changing. And another big problem that I hear, a complaint rather, is paid ads are faster now. Yes, it's 100% true. Paid ads are faster. But remember, SEO has more trust and it's more long-term. All right. Right now, as of this moment, SEO is still the gold standard when it comes to getting new patients because it has more trust. So when it comes to SEO, there are 4 big pillars that your physio practice absolutely need to get right. Here they are. Number 1 is local SEO or Google Maps, map pack, right? Ranking in the top 3 in that Google Map pack for the big keywords. So physio near me is going to be one of them. All right. It could be physio, your suburb, your city, whatever that is, or low back pain, all that kind of thing. Ranking for them in that map pack. It's crucial because if you really think about it, if you type in physio near me, when that map pack comes up, it is first thing that comes up in the search results. It's big and it's visual. So it demands a lot of attention from people who are searching, and you need to appear there, right? So doing good local SEO for Google Map Packs is critical. That's one of the pillars. The second pillar is website SEO, right? And this is optimizing the pages within your website to rank for big keywords. Physio near me is one of them. Like I mentioned, physio, your suburb, your city, low back pain, headaches, post-surgery, physio, post-pregnancy physio, Pilates, all those kind of things. Those local keywords, website SEO becomes really, really important. Number 3 is content SEO, right? So this is blogs and service pages and location pages that are in line with what the searches that are happening in your area, all right? So keeping content fresh and frequent and regular gives a strong signal to Google that you are updating your website regularly. It's not a stagnant website, that you are publishing content regularly. All right, that's a big thing. If you're not current, Google values your website less, right? But you can't just publish blogs and pages. You have to do it with a plan, with a strategy, and in line with the biggest keywords that your patients are searching for in your area. 4th pillar is technical SEO, all right? Now, this one is the most critical one because this is basically like the base that the other 3 will be on. The 4th one is technical SEO. This is the speed of your site and how friendly it is, especially on mobile, because 70% plus of your new patients and your visitors will come from mobile. Okay, and it's also got to do with user experience as well. Or how good of a user experience are you giving to your patients, that is keeping them on the site and preventing them from bouncing off. This is absolutely critical. If you had to pick one of these 4 to work on, this is the one. Even if you have a very basic website, if it's not fast, if it's not friendly on mobile, if it doesn't have great user experience, it basically affects all the other 3 pillars. So getting this right will be the number 1 thing. But we'll talk about exactly what to do to get these things right. Right, let's talk about local SEO first. This is the Google Map Pack. Okay, so now generally when it comes to the Google Map packs, right? Like I mentioned, this is the big visual snippet that comes on Google right at the top. It demands a lot of attention because it's very, very visual, and it's got lots of information that pages are looking for. For example, it has a phone number, you can get directions, you can see the number of reviews for the website. It's very visual, it's got a map, lot of information, rich information in a very small amount of space, but still big in Google, right? Getting this right is absolutely critical. And around 50% of clicks go to the top 3 results. Actually it's more than 50%, but minimum 50% of clicks go to the top 3 results. So if you don't rank in the top 3 for the big keywords like physio near me or physio your suburb city, you're losing a lot of trusted, high value traffic. Obviously, if you rank well here, you're going to get more calls, more online bookings, and obviously more revenue and more profits, and therefore you can really, really grow your practice as well, right? And part of this, part of your Google Maps is making sure that your Google business profile is on point, it's sharp, and is optimized, okay? So let's talk a bit more about that. And this is how you do it. First thing is just make sure that you have checked and claimed your Google business profile. A lot of physio practices still, they haven't claimed it. All right. This is a very, very big thing. So make sure you've claimed it. All right. And after that, make sure you pick the right category for your Google business profile. For physiotherapy practices, you need to make it physical therapist or physiotherapy as the primary category, and then you can add subcategories to it. You must do this. If you don't do that, or if you haven't got that right, you're sending a very wrong big signal to Google, because you want them to think you're a physio practice. That's the number one thing. Your number of reviews. So the standard we set for practices is at least 10 positive reviews per month per practice. So a positive review is anything more than 4, it's a 4 or a 5-star review. That's a positive review. And you need to have at least 10 of them per month, right? Within Google Business Profile, you can actually put updates on there, and updates and posts. And you need to update and post at least on a weekly basis on Google My Business Profile related to the keywords that you're looking to target. All right. And the ways you can find out what keywords to target is by doing some keyword research first, right? You can have tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs. There's lots of tools out there. Some of them are free. Some of them you have to pay to find out exactly which keywords you can use that are relevant to you that you need to target. And you need to make sure your updates in the post in the Google My Business Profile are exactly those, or at least you got them in the post in a very natural way. All right. And the final part of doing really well on this map pack is getting a clinic on local directories. All right. So citations. So you'll find there'll be business listings in your area. All right. It's a website with collection of businesses as a directory. You need to make sure that you have your website on those directories, many of them as possible, but you need to keep what we call the NAP, or name, address, and phone number, very exactly the same in all directories. Otherwise, Google will not count it. So it needs to be exactly the same. I'm talking about spaces, commas, everything. They're exactly the same. Copy and paste the same thing everywhere. Right? So here are some quick ways you can get some SEO wins for your Google Map rankings, right? So use your phone, right? Or your staff can use your phone as well, and get as many videos of things in your practice. It could be your reception desk, it could be staff treating, it could be your reception area, it could be your gyms, it could be your equipment, it could be the models that you use to educate patients, it could be teaching sessions, whatever you're doing in the practice. Try and capture them on video and images and put that into the profile. All right. Having a rich sense of content of photos and videos will really help rank really well in your Google Map Pack listing. Okay. Then Remember we talked about the standard being, in terms of reviews, at least 10 positive. Once you get them, you respond to them, negative and positive reviews. Now, we have a separate podcast in how to do exactly this, right? How to respond to your reviews and how to turn them into 5-star reviews. Obviously, we're not going to go to that in this episode, but what I recommend is, if you're not sure, there's a whole framework that you can use to respond to reviews, including the really bad negative ones, and turn them into positive ones. I'll encourage you to go watch that. But either way, you need to respond to the reviews, all right? So what a lot of practitioners tend to do is they get a review, a positive review, and they don't respond to it. Now, not a big deal, you might think, but if you respond to it, it does a couple of things. Firstly, anyone who's coming up and looking at these positive reviews, they get to see your response. And that's a good thing. They get to see that you're very hands-on and they're responding to even the positive reviews. That's a good thing. And secondly, signals to Google that you are very, very hands-on as well, which from a online presence perspective, from a local map pack perspective, that's a big thing. So respond to every review, right? And like I talked about, keep your NAP, your name, address, phone number, the exact same across all the listings. That way, Google does not get confused. It knows exactly who you are and what your NAP is across all the citations. And the other thing is, when it comes to Google Maps, remember those updates we talked about? You got to use big keywords, so physio near me, physio suburb, city, your suburb, your city, ankle pain, whatever it is, you got to use them naturally in your update. Use them naturally. Because the more and more you have them of those big keywords, it signals to Google that you have a profile around it. All right. It helps you rank in those top 3 and obviously number 1 as well. Okay. So now let's talk about website SEO and how to rank for big keywords like physio and near me. Right. So your website is the number 1 place your patients go to before they become a patient of yours. If you think about it, right? Every one of your patients, at least a massive number of them, 99% plus, they would have gone to your website first, be a patient at your practice. Even if they knew you as someone, maybe it's one of your relatives even, or somebody, a word of mouth referral, they'll generally go to the website to get in touch with you. Okay? So for that reason, your website becomes a big part of it, right? Now, beyond that, having a great website is critical for your online presence because Google prioritizes fast, mobile-friendly, keyword-optimized websites. Okay? So people want a fast, responsive website. If they have a slow, clunky, really slow, annoying website, they're going to bounce off. All right. And that's not good. Google will know about that. Then you will get penalized. You won't rank as high because the experience for that patient or that visitor isn't there. And Google will know about it. So it needs to be fast. It needs to be mobile friendly because what we find is 70% plus of visitors and new patients will come from mobile. So if your website isn't optimized and it's fast on mobile, you're going to have a big negative effect on 70 plus patients of your practice. Okay? And the website needs to be keyword optimized, right? You can't just have a website. You need to have the right copy in it. And the only way you do this is doing the keyword research. Like I mentioned, there's lots of tools out there, paid and free, that you can find out which keywords to put where, right? Ahrefs, SEMrush, lots of tools, right? But when it comes to performance, there is one free tool that you must always be on top of, and that is Page Speed Insights. If you Google Page Speed Insights, it's a free Google tool. It shows you how your website is doing in terms of performance in both mobile and in desktop, right? It's a free tool. It's a critical tool. If you haven't done already, especially recently, I would encourage you to keep doing that regularly just to make sure your website is doing well. And what you want to have there in terms of performance, for website and mobile, you want to have a minimum of 90 minimum. Okay. But each of the pages in your website, okay, whether it be the home page, whether it be a low back pain page, whether it be a physio, your suburb page, it should answer one primary question really, really well. And that is, why should I be a patient at this clinic? It should answer that question. Because remember, this is not your website. This is the visitor's website. There, you're putting it up so people can see what you're all about. Right? So these are the three most important pages when it comes to website SEO, right? Homepage is one of them. All right, you need to have a very strong sense of imagery in it, right? So the hero section of the homepage, you really need to make sure that make visitors feel very comfortable straight up. Okay, what we say is the top part of your homepage is like, it's like when somebody comes and knocks on your door and you open the door, and the smile you give them, especially if they're friends or family. All right, that feeling that you create for the visitor in your home is the same thing as the feeling. Same thing you're trying to recreate on the top section of your homepage. So you want to make sure that, it's got real imagery, right? Not stock imagery, real imagery. All right. And it needs to make them feel comfortable. The page needs to have Google reviews in there. You can't say though, like, this is what you can expect as a patient, but you can definitely say this is what our other patients have said about our services, right? You can put your Google reviews there, and you want to have authority symbols there as well. If there's anyone you're affiliated with, maybe you have memberships, sporting clubs, all that kind of thing, you need to have it on there, right? But once again, we have a different podcast in how to create the perfect, best-in-class website for your practice. I'd encourage you to go watch that because it breaks it down into a lot more detail than this particular episode, all right? So homepage is one page, and the service pages is the next one. You can't just have physiotherapy and all the services in one page. That becomes confusing to Google, all right? Google needs to know what each page is all about. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to break it into the main themes and the sections of what people look for within your practice, all right? It could be physio is one page. It could be low back pain is another page. It could be ankle pain, foot pain, headaches, TMJ, etc. You need to break it down into subsections within your practice that people are looking for, all right? And they all need to be optimized. Make sure that they do 90 plus on page speed insights as well, okay? Then you want to have location pages, right? Remember, so Google is physio practices are very local businesses, and for you to do well, you need to signal to Google that you're location specific, that you serve a certain area, right? So this is where you need to have a page for each of the suburbs of the cities that you serve. When you do that, you're signaling to Google very strongly that you work in this particular area. And not only that, when somebody searches, for example, physio, whatever your city or whatever your suburb is, you have a chance of ranking high in the map back and obviously in the search results as well. All right. So there are 5 main mistakes that practices typically tend to make that hurt their SEO. Let's talk about them. Number 1 is a slow site speed. Google takes visitor experience very, very seriously. They are hinging their reputation on the recommendations they make. If they send somebody to a website that is not going to be really great, that experience is going to affect what they think of Google because they didn't serve the right website. So having a slow website that is not user-friendly is the number 1 thing. And once again, go back to page speed insights, make sure your website and all the pages within it are 90 plus, absolute must. All right. Another one, the second mistake is no sticky header with clear call to actions. Now, what I mean by sticky header, and this is especially on mobile, right? A header obviously is on a homepage. You'll see the menu at the top, right? With the logo typically on the top left-hand corner. And you got call now and book an appointment on the top right-hand corner, right? That's the header, but you want to be what we call sticky, meaning no matter how much you scroll, that header stays at the top of the screen. Now, why that's so important is if you really think about it, patients are unlikely to go straight to that book a call. They want to scroll to the website and sort of interact with it to see if it's a place they want to call. They're going to do that. And if your header disappears as they're scrolling, all right, and when they are ready to make a call and book an appointment, they have to work really hard to find those buttons. Whereas if it's sticky at the top, they know exactly, it's very fast for them to take their next action. Okay, and you want to minimize the time and the effort that your visitors are spending when it comes to taking that action. The longer it takes, the lower the number of conversion new patients will get. Okay, that's mistake number 2. And part of that is not having the right CTAs. Now, typically what we find the best call to actions are book an appointment and call now. So you need to have that in the sticky header. Mistake number 3 is thin or missing content. So a golden rule of SEO is each page should have a minimum of 500 to 800 words in it. Any less than that, it's too just it's difficult to make out what that page is all about. All right. So you need to make sure that you create content for each of the pages and you have at least 500 to 800 words in them. Mistake number 4 is no internal links. All right. Now, the reason why this is important is an internal link is, you've got a page on your website, and in that, let's just say it's an article about ankle pain or foot pain, for example. And in that article, it mentions something about ankle pain, right? An ankle pain point. You might have another ankle pain article that you did. And what you want to do is have a link to that ankle pain part of the foot pain article, that if anyone wants to click on that link, they can go to the ankle pain blog, right? That's an internal link, a link within your website. And when you have lots of them, Google can figure out even more what the structure of your website is, because you're basically connecting the dots for Google. Instead of you relying on Google to connect the dots, which is going to be a lot longer and obviously slower and less accurate. Whereas if you have the internal links, it's much faster and it's more accurate. All right. So that internal links is a big, big thing in everything that you do. So you want to avoid what we call an orphan page. Orphan page is a page, it's got no links coming into it. All right. You could have, for example, that ankle pain article. All right. But there's no links coming into it. That's an orphan page. The only way that it won't become an orphan page is if you have internal links coming into it. That's mistake number 4. Mistake number 5 is not optimized for mobile. Okay. So like I mentioned, 70+% of your searches or visitors for your website will come from mobile phone. If you haven't optimized your website for that, you're going to lose a huge amount of new patients and visitors. Right now, it can be quite technical. So make sure that you stay on top of page speed insights to make sure you see how your website is doing. But you'll see on that actual page speed insights page, Google recommends quite a few things to do. Now, it can be very technical to do, right? So if you're not technically minded, we recommend hiring a web developer or somebody who's an expert in fixing these up to get your page speed to that particular level, because sometimes it can be very, very technical, okay? And, it's far too much detail to cover in one podcast episode, all right? But if you're a really big practice owner, which I know you are, if you're listening to this episode, you don't want to be doing these things anyway. You just want to get an idea as to what needs to be done, and you give it to the most competent people to do that. Okay. So now let's talk about content SEO. All right. So creating content that really works. Remember, this is not just about getting your physios to create a blog article and putting it up there. There's no plan behind that. It needs to be a specific strategic plan in doing content, which is ultimately is to get you new patients and more calls. Right? More calls and more booked appointments, get more new patients is really the end game, right? So, but how do you determine what kind of content you should have in your website? Well, there's a great resource called Google Trends. Google Trends is a place where you can type in, a set of keywords. It could be physio lower back pain, all that kind of thing. And it'll give you a whole bunch of questions and topics that people are searching for around that topic. All right. These are exact searches that are happening on Google. Doing that alone will give you some great material to base your articles on. Because like I said, there's no point of just creating an article and putting it out there if no one's searching for it. It's going to be a waste of time and money. You want things that people are actually looking for. Google Trends is a phenomenal way of finding that out, right? That's a very, very important thing. And another kind of content you can have is case studies and success stories. You can literally have, you might have a patient journey where somebody might have come in to your practice, let's just say with lower back pain or something like that. And, what kind of journey they went through with you and what was the result? What was the result that people look to get when they come to a physio? That could be one page, right? And you can create as many pages of this as possible, right? This is a really good way to create content by yourself. When you're creating blogs and articles, there should be a plan that it should be tailored to searches that are actually happening. So here are some ways to get some easy wins with articles and blog content, right? You've got to use the keywords naturally in the headline and in the first paragraph, okay? So let's just say it's how to treat ankle pain. You want to have that in the headline and in the first paragraph when you write it, okay? And you want to actually answer that actual query or the search, especially what you got from Google Trends. You want to answer that within the article. Very, very important. And you want to add some content that are very relevant to this article, especially images that is related to this particular article. Right now, you can do all of this with AI. You can use AI to actually create the content even. All right. And just make sure you have lots of internal links as well. All right. So there's a lot of ways that patients can go from this page, and you're really signaling to Google what this page is all about. Okay. So you can use AI. You can use ChatGPT for content. All right. That is the article, blog, and the images. You can use it. All right. It's an easy way to do it. But if you just do it by itself and you publish it, chances are, Google is very, very strict. It wants to make sure that these are real articles and authentic articles. There's a whole, authority and credibility criteria that Google has. If it detects that is generated purely by AI, there's a big chance that firstly, you won't rank for that particular content, or worse, that you might get de-indexed, which means that you're not indexed in Google, which means you're not appearing in Google at all, and they'll recognize and penalize you for that. Once you get to that point, it can be very difficult to get your website to reappear on Google. And if not done correctly, this is a very dangerous road to go in, because you're basically killing off, like I mentioned, the most trusted source of traffic there is when it comes to finding new pages. You don't want to do that. So you can use AI, but you need to what we call humanize it. All right, you need to go through the actual article itself and change it a little bit, change it so it can bypass AI detection. Just use AI, it will get penalized at some point. So technical SEO, this is behind the scenes fixes, all right? So one of the 4 pillars that we talked about. So this is why technical SEO is quite big and why it really matters. Now, we've already talked about, Google ranks the websites based on speed, security, and user experience. Okay. We've already talked about the speed in the website, page speed, insights, etc. Security is one of them. And this is something that a lot of practices miss, because you might go to a website where it goes, when you click onto it, it says the site is not secure. And that is typically because there's a thing called the SSL certificate for a website that makes it secure, and that's not working the way it should be. So you need to make sure that your SSL certificate is working well, And whenever you click onto your website, it doesn't flag your website as not secure. Because as you can imagine, if people get that message when they go onto your website, the chances are they're going to drop off, which means it's a very poor experience. And Google does not like that. So your chance of ranking are going to go down pretty quickly. Okay. And the other one is user experience. So we talked about having internal links, having a fast website, having the relevant content. So it's very important that you figure out what content to put on each page, depending on what people are searching for. All right. And you can all do this, like I mentioned. You can use Google Trends, you can use AI, but you need to humanize the content. But the biggest thing is if your website is slow or confusing and it's not actually addressing, the primary question, why should I book with this practice? If it's not addressing that, they're going to bounce off. Okay? It's a big thing. So here are some 5 quick ways you can get some technical fixes to boost your own SEO. Right? Now, one of the biggest things for a website is visual assets. So let's just say images and video. That can take a long time to load for your website, especially on mobile, right? The larger these images and video are, the longer it takes to load. Therefore, the slower the website will become. So you need to make sure that you compress these images and videos. And there are lots of tools out there in how to do that. Just Google compress images, compress video for SEO. There's heaps of tools out there. Right. The other thing is, one of the big things is you can do all of these things, right, that we're just about to mention, but if you don't have a fast host for your website or a server for your website, it doesn't matter how compressed your images and videos are. If you have a slow server, it cannot serve the site to the visitor fast enough. Okay, so this is a big downfall. If you go for cheap sort of hosting and servers, you're going to get a poor speed and it's going to affect your performance. We use a host called Fast Comet. So we've tested them. They're very reliable and they're fast. I recommend to at least consider them if you're looking at getting hosting, or if your hosting is a little bit slow, you're looking at changing, consider Fast Comet. We're not associated with them by any way. We use them. They're really, really great. Okay. And make sure that your website is mobile friendly. Now, once again, this is a huge topic when it comes to doing that, but make sure that your site is friendly and responsive in mobile. And another one is fixing broken links. Now, that is what we call a 404 error. You might have seen that, right? And if you have that, that is a poor experience, and that's going to affect the user experience for your visitor, and because of that, your website will get penalized by Google, right? And the best way to fix them is, well, firstly, you've got to detect them. A good way to detect them is tools like Screaming Frog, SEMrush, and Ahrefs will tell you exactly which links are broken. From then, you can actually put the right links in there. It's pretty easy, right? But you can use Screaming Frog, SEMrush, and Ahrefs to figure out which are those links. Okay? Now, those are 4 main big pillars. Now let's talk about tracking and measuring for your SEO success, because none of this really matters. You can do all of these fixes, but without having a proper way to measure what you're doing, how do you know what's working and what's not? So here's what you need to do. So there's 3 main SEO metrics that really matter. Okay. So first one is organic traffic. How much traffic are you getting from SEO? And the best tool to use for that is Google Analytics. It's free. It's a very powerful tool. If you're not using it, I highly recommend that you do. All right. So that is all set up on your website. Google Analytics is great for organic traffic. The second one is keyword rankings. Now, the tool for this, once again, it's free and it's from Google. So it's a very powerful tool. It's called Google Search Console. It's not great just for traffic. It's great for a lot of other metrics as well, but for measuring keywords, rankings, and what your click-through rate and how many times it's showing up, GSC or Google Search Console is great. Okay, and the other one, and the most important one, is your number of bookings and conversions you're getting. So the conversions, the typical big conversions that we see are really useful, is obviously a booked online appointment, call to the practice, submitted a contact us form, and interacted with the chat widget. All right. Those are the 4 main key metrics that we measure, and you can configure in Google Analytics. And once again, this podcast is not big enough to do that, right? There are ways to do that. There's lots of courses out there that you can do, but getting the bookings and conversion tracking set up so you can measure what all this traffic that you're driving in and all this SEO work that you're driving in, how is it really effective, I guess, in terms of new patients. This is something that you really need to set up and measure. All this stuff is great, but SEO is just it's not an overnight thing. It's the gold standard. And because of that, it's obviously very highly valuable. It takes time. It takes a long time to make this work. Typically, it takes months. We see, it takes 12, 24 months to have a really, really strong SEO profile. Once you get to a certain stage and you keep working on it, it lasts for years. It's a very strong profile that you've got the foundation for, that you can maintain to last for years. All right. So obviously, the earlier you start, the sooner that you can rank number 1 for big keywords like physio near me and all these kind of things. Right? It's very, very important. All right. So I really hope that was useful. That is a bit of a comprehensive overview in what SEO is all about, right? And how to do powerful SEO for your practice. Now, if you found that useful, right, you might be like most practice owners, you want somebody else who is an expert in, growing physio practices and taking it to the next level. You might be interested in, having somebody who's an expert actually do these things for you. If that's you, I want to encourage you to head down to our website, physiomarketing.co. There's an option to book a call there. Book a time that suits you. And we are happy to sort of discuss and see where you are right now and where you want to go next. Other than that, thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.